Nothing gets caught up quite like a crankbait, and that's exactly why I use them. They're effective lures for covering a lot of water. This one is by 6 cents, and you'll notice too, it's a deep diver. It's got a big bill on it. Now my lake here is only probably 9 feet deep at the most. I don't need a bait that dives to 15, but I use it on purpose. The reason I use the deep diver is I know how it's going to dive to about 12 to 15 feet depending on your setup. If it's not hitting the bottom, I instantly know how deep the water is. How I fish this bait though is different than what most people think. I'm fishing it for a reaction strike. And what is a reaction strike? You know how like if you go to the doctor and he hits your knee and you have a reflex action? That's what a reaction strike is. The fish can't help but bite it. So when you crank these baits down into the rocks, as soon as I find the rocks with my jig, I'll run the crankbait into the rocks if I can't get them on the jig. So what happens is it goes down and it hits the rock and it deflects funny. And by funny, I mean it shoots erratically left and right. It hits the rock and it has a darting motion. Well, that darting motion will cause that reflex strike the way the doctor hits your knee and causes your reflex in your knee. The bass isn't necessarily feeding on it. It's not a conscious decision for the bass to feed on it. And that's why I like crankbaits. That's exactly why I use crankbaits. I'm kind of forcing them to bite, if that makes sense. I'm putting something down in front of them, and I'm specifically doing this on rocks, in this reservoir especially. It works in wood as well. You're gonna need to go to a different crankbait. Go to a square bill on your wood structures. Usually the square bills are gonna come through there a little bit better than these deep divers. I use the deep divers in the rocks. And I mean, I'll throw this deep diver up into like 2 feet of water. I'm not afraid. Just slow your speed down and crank it and let it hit the bottom.